This is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com with another episode of Fast Action Fridays. Today is a business friend of mine who is my special guest. His name is Kurt Scholle. He's got tons of experience in business and website building and website maintenance and radio. And we've been chatting here for almost an hour before we even started recording for this episode.
Yes, we have.
And we could probably talk another, 6-7 hours easy without taking much of a break.
Yes.
Before we get into the tips you've got for us today, Kurt, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've lived in Chicago most of my life. I had an interest in media from a young age. I was an audiovisual aide in high school. Took an interest in radio. Got a job while I was in high school at a local radio station, and I was so proud of myself for making 25 cents more an hour than minimum wage. I was making $2.50, but that was the first of a number of radio stations that I had in my career. I eventually made it to an NBC owned and operated radio station in Chicago. I worked for a 50,000 watt Clear Channel station in Cincinnati that carried the Reds and the Bengals, and that was, really a dream come true. But I met a guy in radio who had started building websites, and he was coding them by hand. This was before any of the WYSIWYG editors came out or anything along those lines.
I remember those days.
And I remember him saying at one point, this is going to be like radio, meaning the internet. This is going to be like radio was 70 years ago. It's going to evolve. And boy, has it. And he and I ultimately began a company called Web Asylum. And, our very first webpage said, it's not that we're nuts about the internet or you'd be crazy to have anybody else build your website. Another definition of asylum is safe harbor. And that's the approach that we had, was that we would sort of be a safe harbor for our clients. Very early on, and this was in the late 90s, we actually created a website called SuburbanNet. And we would sell pages on that website to local businesses. It was sort of like Google My Business 20 years before Google My Business was a thing. So we really missed out on our calling, but we were always looking for ways to introduce the internet to people. I think it was the first Monday of every month, we would teach people how to surf the web and set up an email account by pushing a bunch of computers that were tied to the internet on dial-up accounts at the Chamber of Commerce offices. And that's what we did. We charged $10, which was used to buy salad and pizza from the place next door. And people would be like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Oh, that's a website. And then also the idea of using, you and I were talking about CompuServe earlier, maybe using something like CompuServe or AOL to send and receive emails, to stay in touch with family and people along those lines. And so it did evolve over a period of time. We got into Web 2.0 back around the turn of the century, where there was, rather than just having static websites, that there is a component now where people can have a little bit more engagement with their website visitors. And that's all fascinating stuff to me. And so over the years, I began trying to learn as much as I could about strategy to help our clients with, becoming a success. And then that was my approach. And from a salesman, I wanted to get referrals. I wanted people to say, oh, you need a website. Well, you need to go talk to Kurt. And so I can remember, so what would it be, 20, 21 years ago, saying to people, there are a number of keys to a successful website, but the two that are most important are, you have to have content that converts. You have to have some sort of offer. I'm not sure that e-commerce was really in vogue at that time. So the goals for those websites would have been more probably come into the shop and buy something, have dinner in our restaurant, donate to the, animal shelter,
Or a
things like that.
fancy business card that gave people your phone number and address and directions to your office or retail location. They were pretty much just a glorified business card.
It was brochureware,
Exactly.
right?
And that doesn't help us anymore. They have to have, like you said, this component. If your website, you want your website to be assisting you in growing your business and in generating income. And in doing that, that first tip that you had, that there's got to be components on your website that help it convert. Do me a favor. I know I've got some people who are not really experienced in the online business yet. Give us a description or a definition of what convert means in terms of information on your website.
Excellent question. You want somebody to do something as a result of visiting your website. I like to say that every page on a website has a job. What is the job of the page? And it's usually to support some overall goal. There could be a number of little jobs that you want done. There's, a whole buyer experience from people begin to find out who you are, and then they may find out a little bit more, and they're still looking for a solution, and then they're thinking that maybe you might have the right solution, even if it's something as simple as where are we going for dinner tonight. And that's really kind of a key. One of the things that I coach my clients is that every page on the website has to have a job. And if the page doesn't really have a job, you should consider getting rid of that.
Right. If you don't know what the job of that page is, how in the world would a viewer know what that job is for that page? You've got to take them by the hand and tell them what their next step should be.
And that may be come in and visit our store. It may be pick up the phone and call. It may be download this white paper. It might be sign up and subscribe for this newsletter. It might be to follow us on Twitter or Facebook. I mean, there's any number of things that you're going to want to include and have as a job. So that's what the content does on a website is you're trying to get them to do something that leads the customer through the buyer's journey a little bit more effectively and gets them closer to buying, or if they are a current or past customer, to get them to be an evangelist for your product or service.
Something I want to point out here is this whole process of conversion is meant to benefit both you and your viewer. You really don't want to convert people that you don't want to be customers or who are not going to benefit by what you have to offer. So that's where
Win-win.
Understanding that whole buying process, so your message is really understood and received by that target audience. I know you've got a couple more tips for us because you're giving us the Holy Trinity of website success. So if every page on the website needs to convert, have an element of conversion for you, what's next, or what else is there?
Getting qualified traffic to that content. You could have the best message in the world, the best website in the world, but if nobody is seeing it, if nobody's consuming it, and now in this day and age, if nobody's interacting with you, then you have a problem. One of the things that's gotten very important lately for local businesses, whether it's a dentist or a restaurant or a little league organization or the bank or gift shops, is having a local presence. People are paying a lot more attention to reviews than they did. I forget the exact percentage, but I think it's close to 80% of people will not do business with a business that has less than a 4-star rating. And they're looking in multiple places, right? So they could be looking at TripAdvisor, Yelp, Google reviews. So that's important. And it's also important, a lot of those people will not do business with businesses if there isn't recency. So I train a lot of my clients to get in there and respond to a review, whether it's good or bad.
No dusty corners.
Yeah. So it's gotten a lot more complicated. I did some work for a small hotel chain, management chain. They had a number of different flags, right? So there was a Holiday Inn and I don't know what all, Westin, a Sheraton, things like that. And they were wanting to use social media a little bit more to boost their sales and reservations, and especially book conventions and weddings and things like that. And it was part of having a conversation. The thing that I think is very important to understand is that everything you do online should come back to your core property, which 11 times out of 10 is your website. So you should be trying to get people to come back to that. These are conversations not unlike what's been going on in hotel lobbies for 100 years. It's just a little bit different medium. That gives you some advantages. You can automate some of that. You can work on some of that sitting in your den at night after dinner, or, after you get up in the morning and you're having your coffee. But those conversations are important, and it goes beyond a standard 9 to 5.
Exactly. Some of my listeners and viewers know that my husband and I used to manage a Best Western with a banquet center and an on-site restaurant.
Really?
And what you say about getting people onto the premise is so true. I was the banquet manager and assistant GM and assistant restaurant manager. Most of my time was in the banquet area, and I needed to get people in. It wasn't enough to get them on the phone and say, okay, we could, we had room for this many guests and we could supply these services. The best conversions of interest to paying customer was to come into the facility so I could show them and help them visualize what they would get for their money and if it matched their vision. I see the same thing even if your business is online. You want to get them to come back to the website, to feel comfortable on your website, to know they can find additional information on your website, to connect with you on the website, whether it be through the blog or articles, whatever, because there's still a big misconception about what a blog is anymore. It's not just somebody's private journal up on that happens to be online that other people online can read. It's usually a repository of good information and articles that helps present what that business does. Correct?
I think blog content also, not to interrupt, but is really useful for people who are in a different phase of the buyer's journey. Blog content usually attracts people who have an issue that they're trying to solve. They may not know who you are. They may not know you, like you, and respect you, or trust you. But a lot of blog content works because it answers a question. And I coach our clients is, it's almost like the 5 W's: who, when, where, why, and how. So they're in a different part of the buying phase. From that, you can then link to a page that has a job of either having them show up if you're a local business or doing something else online. I have a client, I've been talking to her for the last several weeks about how blog content is sometimes best used as a sort of pre-frame content. So people who are still kind of looking for a solution, we have in my course, we have we talk about some of the various stops along the way that people have before they make a buying decision. So this can be very helpful in getting people to be aware of you, and then beginning to trust you, and then ultimately deciding to click on the link and do whatever it is you want them to do, whether it's to buy in your online store or to make a phone call or to sign up for an email newsletter.
Right, right. And I know we're both big proponents of your website should represent the feeling that you give to people, even if you were to meet them in person, that can't be too far from the reality of what is, if you want people to trust you. All right. This is the Holy Trinity of website success. We've got two. What's the third?
Well, so I was always talking about those two things. And in the last 2 or 3 years, I've decided that there is a third primary key to website success. And so hence I call it the Holy Trinity of website success. And that is having a very complete understanding of who your prospects are,
Mhm.
what they're looking for, what they know about the problem or solution, how do they feel about this? Because sometimes people chase prospects that are not a good fit. And you've probably heard the quote where they say, if you're selling to everybody, you're selling to nobody.
Oh, absolutely. We talk about that a lot on Fast Action Fridays.
And that's that's very important. It's much better to try and narrow in on people who are really more of the better fit. And so you can identify those people. We talk about the questions that you ask to define who those target personas are. There's almost always more than one. You may be selling one product, but it may be useful or a solution to multiple users, either by demographic or job, uh, cost basis, something along those lines. Matt Basak is a great internet marketer. He wrote a book called Who Has Your Money?
Mhm.
And in it, he includes, I think it's something like 238 questions you could ask yourself about your potential prospect, your buyer. Now, most people are not going to consider maybe more than 100 questions. A lot of people, unfortunately, don't consider more than 3 or
No, they
4.
don't. I learned about that when I became a certified guerrilla marketing coach. Not a term I use a lot anymore because a lot of my market doesn't understand that term. It just means that we're looking to get the greatest value from a limited amount of time, money, resources, and energy. So I prefer the Purgatory Relief Coach for people who think marketing is hell. And I can use that term because my target market goes, that's me. I hate marketing. I don't know what to do with it. How do I get comfortable with it? And it's not wasted effort to learn this, because if you can marry what you want to offer with people who are eager to buy, the selling process kind of happens organically. You really just have to make sure that people know where to find you and how to sign up with you. If
Well,
they're
and be aware of you. I mean, 3%
exactly.
of the people who visit your website today may be in a position to buy, may want to, but the vast majority of people will not. Um, did you go through Mitch Meyerson's course to
I
become a
did.
guerrilla marketer?
Yep.
So did I. Um, and so you've probably read the guerrilla marketing handbook that J. Conrad Levinson
Hmm.
wrote. And in it, they talk about how many times somebody has to be exposed. In fact, my latest blog post on websitesuccessguy.com is actually all about this, where they talk about that people have to hear about your ad, your offer, um, 22 times or something
Yeah,
before
I
they'll
think it was
buy.
15, but it changes. The point is, you have to keep reminding them because they may not hear it the first time. They may not be able to react to it the first time. It may not be a solution they need at that time. It may be something they can't afford right now, even though they really, really want it.
Yep.
And so it becomes part of their wish list. So there's a lot of reasons.
Well, the funny thing is that process that Jay talks about in that book was written in the 1850s.
Yes.
And it's changed since then. But the point is that most people have to hear, and really the point of my latest blog post is that people have to hear the ad more than once. A lot of salespeople will give up after following up just once. When there are a lot of studies that will tell you that people need to be touched 4 or 5 times before they'll buy. Some people need to be touched beyond that. But I think 80 some odd % of people who are selling are not following up more than once.
Exactly.
And there are different ways of following up. It shouldn't just be a phone call.
Can't just be an annoying call.
Right. And there's other studies. When I was doing research for this article, I don't think I included it in my blog post, but they were talking about how a number of prospects do not feel bothered by your persistence in your follow-up. A lot of people say, "Oh, I'm pretty sure they don't want me to call them anymore." But there was and I forget the percentage, but there were a lot of people who actually wanted you to continue. Somebody, I forget who it was, said, just keep following up until they unsubscribe or you're told not to follow up anymore.
A definitive no.
Right.
I know in one of the free resources that I offer, we also discuss this particular topic, and the resources, the 7 essential mind shifts to help you rock your marketing. And we talk about why you need to keep telling people you exist as a business or as a service provider. And the example I use there is McDonald's. Almost everybody knows who McDonald's is, what they sell, where they're located. And if it wasn't important to keep telling people about it, why would McDonald's spend millions of dollars each year on advertising? There's a reason for it. You want to be first in their mind when purchasing from you is at the right moment.
People will buy from you if they know you, like you, and trust you.
Exactly. And
that's something
you want to make
important.
sure that they remember you exist.
Well, that's something that's important too, because of what's called the EAT algorithm. We may be going down a rabbit hole. I'm not sure about your
Well, we've got a
audience,
minute or so left. So
expertise, authority, and trust. And Google started using that to rank websites that were in the YMYL, your money or your life niches, which are investing in health and relationships and things like that. Now they are doing it more for even more generic niches. Is how do you establish expertise, authority, and trustworthiness? And that's very important. And again, it goes back to what I was talking about with social media. People will not consider buying from a company that has a star rating that is lower than 4. They're looking for 4 stars or higher. So that's another takeaway I hope your audience appreciates today.
As we wind down, Kurt, just remind us of what the Holy Trinity is. What are those keywords that represent the Holy Trinity of website success?
So I believe you really have to have these 3 things to have a successful website. If you don't have them, I think that's going to affect the quality. Number 1 is you have to have content that converts. You have to have an offer that will appeal to your target audience before you start driving traffic to it, whether you're getting it organically from social media, whether you're getting it from affiliates, or if you're using paid media, Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever. The second thing is you have to get the qualified traffic to those people. it's getting harder and harder to attract an audience to a website using search engine optimization. And search SEO is not the same as it was 20 years ago.
No.
Just putting a bunch of the same words on the page isn't going to do it. There are a number of ways of getting qualified traffic to those offers. And the third thing is that number 1 and 2 really kind of depend on an understanding of, well, first you have to know what your goals are, right? What is it you want to do with this website? But then it is really understanding who all is a prospect, where do they hang out? It's great to be able to hang out in a forum or a Facebook group or even a face-to-face meetup where you can hear people talk. You can hear the questions that they ask. You have an opportunity not to sell. I think you should do that less than 20% of the time. But if you can be helpful, then people are going to go, oh, well, this woman Kat or this guy Kurt, I've heard them say some things. In social media, it's very important if the people who are following your prospect see or hear you having a positive relationship with a vendor, that can have a profound effect on people beginning to know who you are, like you, and then trust you to buy from you.
Exactly.
So the Holy Trinity of website success.
We will have in the show notes a link to more information so you can connect with Kurt if you'd like to. He's got a wonderful free resource for us called, I have it right here, The Essential Guide to Lead Magnets. Lead magnets can be super helpful in helping you establish what you want a particular page to do and make that conversion happen, that early conversion happen.
That's also good traffic. That's also a good traffic way, right? So people know you already, and so you can, not depend on them remembering to come back to your website. You can send out an email saying, hey, I got this new thing.
Yep, reminding them that you exist there, and also weeding themselves out if they're not a good fit for you. I don't mind unsubscribes if there are people that are never going to buy my products and services. It's like, buy, go do what you need to do. Go buy from whoever you'd like, who you think will help you.
Don't focus on the unsubscribes. Focus on how many people you're adding to your list.
I have a feeling we're going to have you back for another topic another time. And I know you and I have talked about some collaborative things that followers will be aware of if we get anything off the ground with that. Right now, I want to thank you for being my featured guest on Fast Action Fridays. And I want to remind all the viewers and listeners to remember to come back next time when I have another great guest. Until then, remember to keep rocking your unique path to success. Bye-bye.